So let's start with our prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahaviriyam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May God protect both teacher and student. May He nourish us together. May we work together with great energy. May our studies be enlightening. May there be no hate among us. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, do you recollect what we discussed or what we spoke on last Thursday? Have you got any continuity, or are you kind of lost, or are you keeping any note? Do you recollect what did we speak last Thursday?
I think we discussed about the causal body beyond our body, and then we were to discuss the sheets.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. That's right. The reason why I'm asking to everybody is that if you are not keeping kind of notes or anything that reminds you, then each time this will be a new subject for you. Because we cannot complete the entire essence of Tattva Bodha in one class, which is not possible. It usually takes about 1 week, 6 hours a day, 1 week, 6 days. That's what the time required to complete the part of Tattva Bodha, but we're trying to do in 1 hour each day in 2 or 3 days. So in order to have the continuity, you must keep a note, memos, or you try to remember. Briefly, let me recap what we have spoken up to now. Tattva Bodha is the knowledge of the easiness of the ease, which is the consciousness or the awareness. Now, first we spoke about the qualifications of guru or teacher, and then the requirements or the qualification of the seeker, of the student. And then we spoke about different body. We have 3 different body: physical body, we have subtle body, and we have the causal body. We also spoke about 3 states: the waking state, dreaming state, and deep sleep state. Now we speak about 5 envelopes or 5 covers, or what is known as the sheath. Now all this we're speaking about is to prove that the Maya or illusion is having a 2 function. One, it covers up the reality, the absolute truth, and it projects the relative truth. So in order to uncover the absolute truth, we must negate what we are not. And therefore, we must know what we are not. And in that sense, the Vedanta speaks about that we are not this physical body that we see, that we use for our mundane activity. We are not even the subtle body, which is made of 17 components, the 5 pranas, 5 karmendriyas, 5 jnanendriyas, and ahankar, and that's ego, memory, and intellect. So that's subtle body. And then comes the causal body. Now, causal body is nothing but the ignorance. That ignorance of who we are. Now, all these three bodies are related to the three state of mind. One is waking state. That's waking state is when we believe that we are the body. In the dream state, we think it is our subtle body. The mind is projecting different dreams. And dreams are born out of our own experiences, our memory. It may be jumbled up, but dream do not come, or you do not see anything in the dream which you have not experienced. If we are unaware of it, because in a dream it does not appear in the right sequence as per our experience, it jumbles up. So it's like you may see in a dream elephant wearing nice clothes and flying. Now, this is so weird, but it is also our experience because we have seen elephant, for instance. We have seen somebody wearing nice dress. We have also seen birds flying. So all three are our experiences. But in a dream, it need not appear individually. It could jumble up. And so the seeing of elephant, seeing of a nice dress and bird flying can combine together. But that's your dreaming state, which is your subtle mind. And the third is your deep sleep state, where you are closest to the consciousness because you have no experience of your body, as well as your mind is at rest. And therefore, the causal body is considered to be the closest to the consciousness, the experience of consciousness. It is known as ignorant body because when you wake up, when we wake up, we are back to the body consciousness. We are back to the ego, fear, desires based on our subtle body, antakarna. So therefore, it is considered as a body which is born out of ignorance. Now, today we speak about, continuing from there, the 5 sheets which are related to the 3 state of mind as well as the 3 different bodies. So first one is known as Annamaya Kosha. Kosha is cover. Kosha is Sanskrit word for cover or envelope. Annamaya, as name declares, is based on the food, our intake of our food. When we say food, it also includes our liquid intake of water. So Annamaya Kosha is the first seed. Now we tend to believe that we are this body, though it is not reality. The body is not who we are. Body is something we have acquired for its own purpose. But the self, the consciousness is covered by this body. So the first one is Annamaya Kosha. Second one is known as a Pranamaya Kosha. Pranamaya Kosha, as we know, are made of 5 major pranas. We spoke about it last time. Prana, Apana, Udana, Vyana, Samana. But it also associated with karmendriyas, 5 karmendriyas. Why it is associated? All our activities, the physical activities, are based on the amount of energy that we intake. The energy in the form of food and also in form of our intake of prana, the life force. So the Pranamaya Kosha is associated with 5 karmendriyas. Third one is known as the Manomaya Kosa. Now, this Manomaya Kosa is, it as name says, it is mind. And when we say mind, it includes the emotions, it includes fear, desires, greed, ego, memory. This is all is the formation of mind, Manomaya Kosa. This Manomaya Kosa is associated with 5 Gyanendriyas. And because of our Gyanendriyas pass on the message to our mind, and it is mind which would analyze these senses that we feel through the Gyanendriyas. Fourth one is known as a Vijnanamaya Kosha. Now, Vijnanamaya Kosha is based on a subtle body of intellect, power of discrimination. So, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and Vijnanamaya Kosha, all 3 belong to subtle body. In other words, subtle body is composed of these 3 kosas, Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya. Each one has its own nature and function. So Vijnanamaya Kosa is associated with 5 Gyanendriyas. So Gyanendriyas are associated with Manomaya Kosa as well as Vijnanamaya Kosa. Reason is, in reality, there is no clear-cut discrimination or clear-cut difference between mind and intellect. The reason is the faculty of discrimination and decision-making is done by intellect, which is Vijnanamaya Kosa. All the modifications and waves and the changing of thoughts and emotion is mind, is Manomaya Kosha. It is the same part which is, depending on their activity, have got 2 different names, Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha. The science would agree that the Vijnanamaya Kosha, or the intellect, is the activity of brain, buddhi. And the brain has its own physical location. As we all know, the brain is in our skull. Now, the brain, of course, have many functions, and there are more than one brain, and each one has its own function. But according to the Vedanta, the intellect or the buddhi is major job is of decision making based on the thoughts arise in mind and likes and dislikes of the mind. So it is buddhi and intellect which makes the judgment, and it is discriminating power. The last kosa, which is Anandamaya Kosa. Now, Anandamaya Kosa is our causal body. As you realize that during the causal body, which is associated with deep sleep state, when you are in deep sleep state, you do not know, but you are blissful. You do not know because you have no sense of your sleep, deep sleep state. Only when you wake up, you realize that you had a deep sleep and you felt blissful. But while you are asleep, while you are in a deep sleep, you have no awareness of that. It is only the ignorance that I do not know. When we wake up, we realize we do not know who we are. We by error, we identify ourselves with our mind, intellect, and the body. And in this sense, the Vedanta says that these are the 5 covers. It covers your self, the capital self. There is other school which also calls this as a Jivatma. Jivatma is the same consciousness, the supreme self, associated with body, mind, intellect, BMI. When the self, the consciousness, when it is associated with body, mind, intellect, it is known as Jivatma. In that sense, to that extent, the self, the consciousness, experiences the limitations. The limitation of you being body or ahankar or antakarna and intelligent. So it is these 5 covers which envelops our consciousness, our self. Now, how is this that the causal body or the Anandamaya Kosha is closest to the consciousness? It is because it is made up of impure sattva guna. Now, we must recollect that we spoke about 3 gunas, the sattva, rajas, and tamas. All what we perceived in manifestation is governed by these 3 qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Now, there is a pure state of sattva, which is the tanmatra, the pure, subtle 5 elements is tanmatra, that is pure sattva. But when there is a combination of all 5 elements in order to bring about the physical form of elements, as we see, as we realize, as we experience, there is impurity. Now, impurity means that this sattva guna, which is predominant, is tainted by rajas and tamas. So, to some extent, the sattva guna is influenced by rajas and tamas, and it covers the reality, it covers the truth, it covers the self. When it is in state of purity, it is Ishvara, it is Brahman. From Brahman, as we spoke earlier, is the higher state of consciousness known as Brahman. Then the delusion or Maya, which is nothing but a quality of Brahman, which manifests the tanmatra. Tanmatra are those 5 subtle elements and impure sattvic guna. And then it's a divine process of combination and mutation. The 5 elementals are manifested, and that happens known as a panchikarna, process known as panchikarna. And that is the time the rajas and tamas are combined with sattva guna. And when they are combined, the Brahman or the Supreme Self consciousness is covered and projected as Ishvara. Ishvara is nothing but the Brahman plus Maya. So, power of Maya or illusion is to cover the consciousness or absolute truth and project manifestation as relative truth. Our sadhana is to uncover the absolute reality through negating the existence, what appears the relative truth. So in order to uncover the truth, the only way, according to Vedanta, is to negate what is not Atma, what is not consciousness. So physical body is not Atma, is not consciousness. The subtle body composed by all 17 parts, components, the mental subtle body is not consciousness. And the third causal body is also not consciousness, though it is the closest. But in all the three states, waking state, dreaming state, deep sleep state, the one thing which is constant is that consciousness. Because of that consciousness, because of that Atman, all three states are experienced. If that is not available, you do not have experience of physical body, subtle body, or causal body. So three bodies, three state of mind, and 5 covers, sheets are all correlated. And it is only to prove that these are not the absolute reality. These are only the covers, and it's a result of ignorance or Maya. And these kosas or sheath covers the self. The witness of all three states of waking, dream, and deep sleep is that witnesser. The witnesser is again second name of consciousness, because it is this consciousness which witnesses everything. Now we talk again about Annamaya Kosha a little bit more in detail. Annamaya Kosha is the food sheath, as we spoke. It is made of food, and therefore, when we speak about the body, we know that the newborn in the womb is survived based on the food intake of a mother. Again, when it is born, it is further growing. Growth is possible only based on the nourishment that it gets in terms of milk, mother's milk, or further on different food that it takes. So the important part of physical body, the reality is it is born, it grows, it decays, and it dies. So therefore, it's nothing but the same when we say, I was the child. When I was a child, or when I was young man, or when I was a mature man or old man, when we speak this statement, the I is constant. The form of the body changes from the newborn to the adult, the child to the adult to the old man. It's the modification or changes of our physical form. But the I-ness or the I, when we refer to, that is constant. And that I is ourself, is our consciousness. So, and the reason why Veda says that it is Annamaya Kosha is because the physical form is born, sustained, and even after the death, mixes up with the food. So as I explained, in the womb of mother, it is nourished by the food intake of mother. During the lifespan, our body grows or is sustained by the food what we consume. When the body dies, according to Vedanta, at that time, the body is cremated. And so it is mixed with the soil. And the soil is the main source of the food. If you think of the food, every single food that we consume, the origin of that food is the soil. Without the soil, the food does not grow. Of course, it does go through the modification and so many processes before we eat. But the origin, the starting point is your soil. And the food, our body is also cremated into soil and it mixes with the food. And it is said that the different creatures, different living beings survive on eating the soil or the bacteria or the insects, germs that are in soil. So it's a cycle. This is Annamaya Kosha, gross body. Our indulgence in physical form or body ignores the real truth of being the self, because we are so mind conditioned throughout many lifetimes, and we tend to believe that we are this body or this position or status, or as it is known as the labels and tags that we attach to ourselves is what we are. And that is how we identify ourselves as, ignoring the actual reality. Ourselves is that Atma, that in consciousness. Second is Pranamaya Kosha, the air seed, that 5 different vital air that we consume. Actually, prana is one. Once it is inhaled, the 5 different movement of vayu or air are known by those 5 different pranas. It is also associated with karmendriyas because of, as we spoke, it's food and the air, prana that we inhale, enables us to undertake every activity. Even the speaking requires energy. Even thinking takes energy. Every aspect of our life is based on the energy. It consumes energy, and energy is generated only through the food that we intake and our prana, our inhalation. So that is why it is associated with karmendriyas. Karmendriyas, as you know, 5 karmendriyas are our hands, our legs, our speech, our genital organs and excretory organs. These are the karmendriyas. Function of these indriyas is to satisfy our hunger and thirst. So it is also related to the our ignorance and our understanding of we are the body. So our entire life, whatever activity we undertake, essentially it is only to satisfy our hunger and thirst. When we say hunger and thirst, those are the basic necessity for survival. And to pursue all worldly activity, we perform different movements or actions, and this is provided because of the pranamaya kosha, the energy. And therefore, we associate our understanding as we are that what we inhale, what we eat. In reality, it is not so. It is the consciousness which enables us to think or to inhale or to eat. So that is pranamaya kosha. Third is manomaya kosha, which is mind, emotion, seed. And these are associated with 5 gyanendriyas. So gyanendriyas again are those 5 senses of smell, seeing, hearing, taste, the tongue, and the skin, the touch. These 5 are the gyanendriyas. Now remember, when we speak of gyanendriyas, when I say eye sees or ears hears, now eyes and ears are actually only gross appearance in our body. They have the major job is done by the subtle body, which is based on the energy, has the ability to hear, has ability to see. And that ability is the energy based in our subtle body. So the gross body is only appearance. The power behind the gross body is our subtle body. So therefore, the subtle body is divided into three: Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and Vijnanamaya Kosha. So Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha is associated with the Jnanendriyas. And the last and most important part is Anandamaya Kosha, causal body, which is our deep sleep state. Now, this is very complex to understand because this is not only for individual, it is the same for cosmic level, universal level. It is through the ignorance the manifestation takes place. So manifestation is the result of ignorance. When we say ignorance, is because of Maya or the illusion. And you delete the Maya or delusion through gaining the knowledge. So it is not that Maya will disappear from the existence. Maya or manifestation will remain. But for individual who gains the knowledge that this is only an appearance, the reality is that power, that consciousness, which projects this appearance, which projects this manifestation of cosmos. So the cosmic level and individual level, it is this ignorance or the causal body, which is the main purpose, main reason of the existence. So Anandamaya Kosha is known as the bliss sheath or a causal body. And it is explained that after external, so at the body level, we pursue the happiness or the bliss by engaging ourselves in mundane activity, the worldly activity, and we chase the different sense gratifications of different objects, and we ignore the real self. The consciousness is thus covered. It remains as the backup, as the background, and it projects what we pursue worldly activity as a physical form, without knowing that all that is not possible without the consciousness in us. So now, as we spoke earlier, that this is the result of the impure sattvic gunas. So when we say pure sattva is the self consciousness, pure sattvic state of self is based on the knowledge and bliss. So when we speak of Brahman or consciousness, has two qualities. One, it is knowledge. It is all-knowing. It knows everything. And second, it remains blissful. So, and there are other qualities of love. And so the love, peace, and joy are the main modification or main qualities of the Supreme Self or Brahman. And it is based on pure sattva. Experience of bliss in deep sleep due to tainted sattvic guna. When we say tainted sattvic guna, is because that time the sattvic guna is influenced by rajas as well as tamas. So we are not aware of it while we are in deep sleep. So therefore it is known as a impure sattva. It is this rajas and tamas combination with the sattva is the cause of your experience of causal body or anandamaya kosha. So when it is tainted by rajas and tamas, ignorance takes place and the bliss remains. The bliss because you are in deep sleeps and ignorant of what your real state is, who you are really. You remain ignorant because when you wake up, you are back into the gross body consciousness and your mind activity. So it is this causal body which is known as the third state and closest to the fourth state known as Turiya, which is sattvic pure consciousness. So these are the 5 covers that we spoke about today. Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanmaya Kosha, and Anandmaya Kosha. All 5 kosas are only cover, or it envelops the self or consciousness. It is our ignorance that we identify ourselves with these different forms of bodies and covers. So Tattva Bodha teaches us that we must know what we have to negate. We have to negate all these 3 bodies. We have to negate all these 5 covers. And then what remains is that consciousness which enables us to perform, to sustain, to be who we are. Now, this is as briefly as I could explain. As I said earlier, this takes a long time to get into detail. The book itself, to study the book takes minimum 1 week. We've been studying for last, at least, I do not know, maybe 1 year or more, this one book. But this is the essence of the teaching of Tattva Bodha. After this, it talks about what is consciousness, what is the self, what are the qualities of it. And it compares the individual and the cosmic level. So, and it, therefore, when we speak of cosmic level, it talks about Brahman. So the Brahman is different than Brahma. Brahma is the first creation. Brahman is the beyond the manifestation. So it talks about Brahman, it talks about Maya, it talks about the process of Panchikarna from the Tanmatra at cosmic level and then at individual level. And then it talks about the states, 3 different states, as I said briefly, the waking state, dreaming state, and sleep state, how they are related to the consciousness. And finally, it talks about the death. Is it death of what? That is, we all know it is death of the body. But what happens? At the time of death, our physical gross body is dropped. But what happens to the subtle body? Or what happens to the causal body? Now, as we just done this discussion, what is subtle body? Are the impressions, the mind, basically. And when we say mind, mind includes your ego, your memory, your samskaras. Where does that go when you die? What happens to that? And it also talks about the causal body, which is the ignorance or the desire. What happens to that when we die? So these are the subjects which are further into the same text of Tattva Bodha. And then finally, how do you take the next body? How does the self or Atma picks the next body, or known as the rebirth? And this is also based on the karmic theory of karma. So Tattva Bodha ends at that point when the consciousness picks up the next body, and the next body is selected based on your own unfulfilled desires or vasanas or samskaras. And in order to complete those unfulfilled desires, known as prarabdha karma, you pick up the next body to dissolve those unfulfilled desires and vasanas. And in order to dissolve that, because of the ignorance, we create new karmas. Because we do not know that our thoughts, our words, our action creates further new karma, which is known as agami karma. Therefore, Vedanta says we take millions of births to get out of the cycle of birth and death, and that only possible when you gain the supreme knowledge of who you are. It is possible right now, here and now, right at this moment, provided you experience it. Not by reading it, not by talking about it, not by getting influenced about it, but by personal experience. Then you are out of the cycle. But that takes time, right? You may get the glimpse of it, that is known as Turiya. You may get a glimpse of who you are, but that stays momentary. And you are back into the mundane activity based on your ignorance. And this is the Vedanta's teaching, that you have to, the only knowledge that you have to gain is to know who you are. Now, it is for a normal person to talk about who you are or who am I sounds very silly, because people are so accustomed to say, I am so-and-so, I belong to so-and-so, my parents are so-and-so, or I have this position. So we only glorify what we acquire. We do not talk, or we do not realize that all is that possible only because you have that energy, that consciousness, which allows you to do all what you are doing. So when you are established in experiencing of that consciousness, you are then awakened, truly awakened person. Now, it does not mean that you have to be saint, or you have to be in Himalayas, or you have to be in some remote area. You can be where you are as of now, and you continue doing what you are doing now. It is only because of this knowledge, supreme knowledge, you detach yourself with the result of your activity. The moment you accept whatever is the outcome of your activity as it is, as a reward offered by the God, and be happy with that, you are detached. Then you are performing your role, that's all. You are merely performing a role that you have been assigned with. And do not claim any doership. You are not the doer, you remain the puppet, and you perform your role, keeping complete awareness that you are the consciousness, and everything is changing. Everything appears and disappears. The only constant is your consciousness, the Atma. And that's the teaching of Vedas. So as I said earlier, Vedas, there are 4 prominent Vedas or main Vedas. More than 3 talks about rituals based on kriyas. And therefore it is known as Kriya Kandas. It is only 1 or less than 20% of Vedanta knowledge which talks about the true knowledge of Brahman. The reason is, whenever it was few thousand years back, when Vedas were in form of writing, as you probably know, that the origin of Vedas or this literature were revealed knowledge. It was knowledge that was not gained, but it was revealed. Revealed, when I say, it means that those sages and saints in their deep meditation, when they are in samadhi, this knowledge, this supreme knowledge is revealed to them, in form of the grace. So they received this grace of knowledge, and it was not the practice of writing them down or penning them down. There was no such method. It was only transferred by word of mouth. And that is how that is known as the lineage of sages or gurus. So from the one guru, it passed on to second and third and fourth, and it continues in that lineage. In some period of time, nobody knows, this was lost. The true knowledge was lost. And then about maybe few hundred years back, or about 2000 years maybe, the sages Kapila, for example, sage Kapila was the first one to study this and put it in a form that people can preserve and study. And he was the believer of the philosophy called Sankhya philosophy, where he believed in the Brahman, the Ishvara, the God as the supreme being, and we are the Jivatma, which are part of that Brahman. But he believes that that is supreme and we are part of it, and our job is to evolve and merge with the God. That was Kapila's Sankhya philosophy. But then came Sankara, and Sankara believed in non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, which he says the Brahman or God and this consciousness or Atma is actually the same. There is no difference. We are that consciousness. We are that Brahman. It is only our ignorance of attaching our identification with the body, mind, and intellect, we create the difference. So therefore, he believes that when you drop that body, mind consciousness, you are that Brahman. You uncover that you are that power. You are the covered consciousness. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to become, or you don't have to pursue anything. You just have to drop the ignorance. When you drop ignorance, the knowledge surfaces up. And the knowledge is only one, that you are that absolute truth, the consciousness. So I would stop here and check if you have any doubts or questions or need any clarifications or comments or anything that you would like to share.
Acharya-ji, I had one small doubt. I am not able to differentiate between Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha.
Look, as I said, the Manomaya Kosha is based on 15 and 17 components. So Manomaya Kosha is subtle body. And subtle body is composed of 5 karmendriyas, 5 jnanendriyas, 5 pranas, mind and intellect. These are the 17 major components known as the mind. When I say mind and intellect, is known as antakarna. When we say antakarna, it also includes, the emotions, the ego, fear, greed, lust, samskara, the memory, all put together is antakarna, and in terms of speaking, it is known as mind. So mind, intellect, 2, 5 karmendriyas. And when we say karmendriyas, do not think of your hands and legs. These are only the physical form of carrying out the action. The actual power is in subtle body, the energy that is provided to perform. To move my fingers or hand, the hand per se cannot do anything if I don't have energy. And that energy comes from subtle body. So the subtle body is formed with those 5 karmendriyas, the energy of the karma sense, then jnanendriyas and 5 pranas. Whereas Vijnanamaya Kosha is related to causal body. So Vijnanmaya Kosha is the same mind when it takes the decision of, so you had a choice today to continue sleeping or wake up and come to the school or the class. Now the mind was busy deciding whether to attend the class or continue sleeping. It is your intellect, the Vijnanmaya Kosha or intellect, that takes the judgment, decision that you want to attend the class. So that's a subtle difference between mind and intellect. So the intellect is the discriminative faculty and decision faculty. So it is, call it a mind, but has two different functions. So that is the difference between Vijnanmaya Kosha and Manomaya Kosha.
Acharya ji, how to drop ignorance?
Very easy. When you drop, in order to drop ignorance, you have to read literature, listen to your teachers or gurus and pursue it. There are 5 things to do. Shravana, which is either reading or listening. Manana, contemplation. Third, Nidhi Abhyas, practice those principles in your lifestyle. And then you get clarity. And with that clarity, you gain the wisdom of who you are. You gain the knowledge. So 5 process: Shravana, Manana, Nidhi Abhyas. These are 3. And because of these 3, you get the clarity on the subject and you get the wisdom.
Acharya ji.
Yes.
Kapila and Sankara. This you have told too. We are the part of the Supreme. And another say we are the conscious. मतलब एक जगह हम part कहते हैं, एक जगह we are the conscious. So why we are in this in confused? One thing must be there only.
I just spoke about 2 schools of philosophy. There are many schools of philosophy. So it is like this. You are at the one side of the river and you have 5 boats available to cross the river to the other side. Now it is your choice which boat to pick up. All 5 boats will take you to the second side of the river. That is how these are the different philosophies or different wisdom, but ultimately all of them bring you to the same reality of the supreme consciousness. Now, as I said, one school says there is Brahman and there is Paramatma and Jivatma. And it is our job to gain the evolution and merge with Paramatma. So that's one. So the purpose is to gain merging. The second one says, no, we are already Paramatma. Drop your ignorance of being Jivatma. When you drop that ignorance of Jivatma, you discover that you are Paramatma. So again, that school also believes that you are Paramatma. So that's the only, and likewise, there are other schools of thoughts that we can talk sometime other time. Different Arjuna Acharya, for example, I do not know, people have heard about such philosophy, different school. But anyway, all are the different with the same goal. Charaka, for example, there is another school of thoughts which known as Charaka philosophy. Charaka philosophy believes in this gross body. They believe that what we see is what is real. Now, at that level, yes, it's true. I cannot deny that I have the body or I have fingers. I cannot deny that's true. But what is this finger or my hand in reality? is only a gross Annamaya Kosha. It's just the physical form. It is performing its job because of the energy that I get. And where does the energy come from? The consumption of food or water that we have, plus the prana that we inhale, that provides us the energy to do the actions. Now, the prana itself is not what we are, or the energy is not what we are. What enables the prana, the inhalation, exhalation to take place? If we don't have the consciousness, if we don't have Atma, there will be no energy. What is the difference between a person alive and dead? It's just the breath. It's just the consciousness that goes. It believes that at the time of death, the process of dying, according to Vedanta, is the speech merges with the mind. Mind merges with prana, and prana merges with the soul of consciousness. And that is how you leave the body. So first, it's your speech which is affected, then your mind, then your breathing, and then the soul is out of the body. Now, how it goes out of the body is, again, according to each school of yoga, it is through the udana. But other philosophy has other point of view. But so the idea is, it is you who has to choose which is more convincing to you to gain the knowledge, where it is a school of duality, a school of non-duality, or school of Charaka, which is based on the materialistic availability. So the Charaka believes that the world that we see is real, whereas Vedanta, non-duality, says all what you see is unreal. What you cannot see is real. Now, that is why it is considered the school of Vedanta is meant for those who first start with the gaining the knowledge by dropping the ignorance. Now, dropping ignorance does not mean that you stop performing whatever you're doing. You do whatever you have to do, keeping in mind very clear awareness that I'm just performing my role. I have no expectations. Even in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord Krishna says the best way of liberation is to detach. And when we speak of detachment, it does not mean that you detach from your near and dear one. It only means that you perform your roles without expecting a reward or result. And whatever reward or result that you may have eventually, accept that as the prasad offered by God. And that's the attitude of being detached. So different school of thoughts, it's up to us which is more appealing and follow it.
Acharya ji, in a way, it seems that when we actually see any outcome, it is not the outcome of only the actions towards that goal specifically, but also the hisab kitab of all the karmas that we had.
Yes, as I just said, Tattva Bodh also speaks and explains the one reason of taking this human body is only to fulfill your unsettled karmic account. And that's the only purpose, to dissolve those karmic account. But the important but is, while dissolving our karmic account, we have to be so fully aware that we do not create new one. And that's only possible when you drop your ignorance and stay fully aware that you are the consciousness, you are the Sat Chit Ananda. The phrase of Sat Chit Ananda, which is existence, consciousness, bliss. when you believe in Sat Chit Ananda is who you are, and offer all the result of your activity, whatever activity you are doing, offer all the results and outcome of your actions to the deity, to the God, to the higher self, you remain detached from the karmic account, which means if I'm speaking to one of you or some of you or all of you, and if I have clear understanding established that I expect nothing out of it, I'm just sharing it because I love to share it. Now, one of you will revert back and say, what you said was excellent, I like it. Now, that's a reward for me. If I take that as a personal reward, I am into karma because it pampers my ego. But if I just, when somebody praises or somebody says thank you for whatever sharing, I offer back to my higher self and to the God and say, I am only like a conveyor. I am like a passing the message. It flows through my mouth. Therefore, I cannot claim the reward. In such case, I refrain from gaining new karma. So, two things. One, to dissolve your prarabdha karma and be vigilant and aware not to create any agami karma. But as I said, and many people have said, many rishis, that the most difficult or challenging path is to pursue the path of spirituality. It's like walking on a edge of the sword. That is what is called. Because you have to be so totally aware throughout your life, in your lifestyle, and clear in your understanding that I do not want to have any new karmas and therefore come back, take new body and come back again. Because there is another school of, as I said, there are 6 major school of thoughts. One of them says, which is also part of Buddhism, which says the life and everything that we experience is dukkha, is suffering. So their philosophy is based on suffering. Basically, we are all suffering. And to get out of suffering, you need to gain the knowledge. So, of course, as a study, one can study all different school of thoughts, but finally stay with one.
Acharya ji, taking money and giving some money to someone, thus coming back that money to us, or it may not goes to money to another person from which we have landed. So does it create any karma if any of thing got sort of not settled, or it is a normal thing?
Everything and anything during our lifetime has karma. You cannot escape the karma. So that is one thing very clear, no matter whether it's a good thing or not good thing, papa or punya, whatever you think, speak or action, everything creates karma. There is nothing, there is no escape from that. The only escape is do not attach yourself with your thought, words and action. Do not expect result. Now, when I say do not expect result, does not mean that result will not happen. Result will happen. Every action has a reaction or response or result. Do not expect it, but when it appears, when it comes, pass it on. Mentally, emotionally, pass it on and say, does not attach me, does not belong to me. I offer it to whoever you believe in, whichever power of God, call it Guru, call whatever, just let it go. Do not hold it. Moment you possess it, moment you hold it, you are in the cycle of karma.
So that means thought, even whatever the thought you have creates the karma.
Yes. Thought, everything starts with your thoughts and emotions.
Because
Even
sometimes
if you have,
get
even if it is
angry
not expressed.
or sometimes we get angry or some thoughts come in our mind, but we don't act according to those thoughts. We drop them, but because they came in my mind, so they created my karmas.
Yes, that's the only difference is because you did not act upon it or did not express it, the karmic result or karmic reaction would be less. It will be, but you will have, there is no escape, there is karma. Even moment you have some thought, it is registered. We will talk some other time about the Akashic record, what is the another very fascinating divine feature that is called Akashic record. So even what we think is recorded. We may not have spoken about it, we have not expressed it, but yet it is recorded. And because it's recorded, there is a reaction or response, which is karma. Now, the power or influence of some thoughts is less than other, it depending on the nature of your thought and the intention of the thought. Very important is your intention. If your intention is not in harmony with the nature, not in the harmony of the conscious manifestation, then you are into that cycle of karma. I think we should conclude now.
One small question, Acharya.
Yes, please.
The concept of idam na mama, it's not mine, is I think what you're trying to tell. When you say it is the blessings of my parents or my guru, are you passing on the karmas to them? I mean, that's not my intention.
No.
Because they will get stuck in.
It is only that you do not attach yourself. Now, try to understand, when we are talking about karma, we can speak about karma some other time because it is a big subject. Where does it attach to who? What is the karma? Where does it? Is it to our body? No. Is it to our mind? Where does karma is accumulated? And how does it result into next birth? So it is related to your causal body, your ignorance. Yeah. And so anyway, the question is that the passing on the result or reward to your guru or parents is not that you escape the karmic account. You reduce the effect of the cause, they reduce the effect of the karmic account. Because you have not claimed it. Number one, you did not claim it. But as a nature of action, there is a reaction or response. When that result appears, when that result manifests, you do not claim it. And you say, when I say not only physically, but mentally and in spiritually, you must say, I'm not the doer, therefore I do not earn this result. I am only performing my role without any purpose of claiming the result. So if I say, I have done because my superior has told me to do it. Yeah. So for example, in army, a soldier on a battlefield fires a shot and kills another soldier, but it may not be his own purpose, his own wish. He does this as a job or his performing role, what his superiors told him to kill the enemy. So where does the karma go? Karma goes to that soldier, of course, yes, because he took the action, but the decision was done by his superior. So the karmic account also falls on him. Though he is not on battlefield, though he is not holding gun, it's just because he was instrumental in passing on the order, he also gets affected. But in both cases, both says, we are doing only the role. We are not doing ourselves because we get any benefit out of it or we want to have any status out of it. We pass it on. You reducing your agami karma, you reducing the power of karmic account. You will have it. It's not that you are free out of the karmic, but that's the way to decline the agami karma. And probably in so many lives that you might come to a point where you have no prarabdha karma, no sanchit karma, and therefore you don't need to take a new body. I want to end here with one little story in this regard, in this connection. And I have observed this, I have seen this happening. In a hospital, a parent checks in because the wife was to deliver a baby. And the lady delivers a baby at, I think, in the night time. And then the hospital takes the baby to separate room, and the parents were asked, mother was asked to stay another room, which is normal practice. Because the parents were so extremely poor that they could not feed themselves, they decided that if we have this child and take the child with us, how are we going to feed him? We will kill it. We will kill that child out of hunger because we have no means to feed them. We will die ourselves out of hunger because we have no means to make any meals. They took a decision to leave the hospital without informing anybody and leaving the child behind. The newborn was left in the hospital and parents left. In that ward, there was one sister who was a senior citizen. The next morning, realized the parents have abandoned the child. The hospital authority decided to call the police and give the child to the orphanage or whatever. This lady, the senior citizen sister, said, no, I will take care of this newborn baby. I'll be the stepmother. And hospital authority agreed to keep the child in hospital for a certain period of time because just 1 day old baby. Likewise, 11 years the child was in hospital, but the child physically did not grow beyond 2 feet. Could not, calendar point of view, the child was 11-year-old, but physically the child, it was a girl child, did not grow beyond 2 feet. It was like a dead vegetable lying on the table. It was breathing, did not eat. That same lady used to feed water through the spoon just to keep the body alive. 11 years it sustained. And there were so many other people came into picture and said this should be, they should administer such medicine that the baby die because he's suffering. At end of 11 years, the baby finally died. I can't say baby, but anyway, this was our study case. Think of this situation in terms of karma. Whatever was the karmic account that the baby took the body and survived for 11 years without creating single new karma. And therefore, that was the last birth of that soul. And that soul got out of the birth and cycle. Because during that 11 years of time, the baby could not eat, could not see, could not talk, could not do anything. And so physically, everybody pursued that this is terrible state. But in reality, it was most blissful state because that power, that Atma, that consciousness was living the cycle of birth and death because it did not create any new karma, no agami karma. it had some left out karma which had to undergo to dissolve that. Therefore, it suffered for 11 years in that state. But that was end of it. So think of it, whether it was suffering or blissful state. And this is the nature of karma. Asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya loka samasta sukhino bhavantu loka samasta sukhino bhavantu samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, God, for giving us air to breathe. Thank you, God, for giving us water to drink. Thank you, God, for giving us sun for energy. Thank you, God, for giving us food to eat. Thank you, God, for giving us good health and happiness. Thank you, God, for giving us positivity. Thank you, God, for giving us all that we need. Thank you, God, for your love, your protection, your guidance, your blessings. Thank you, God, for the existence. Thank you for giving me chance to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya ji. Thank you, Acharya
Thank
ji.
you.